Hello everyone, Aristides here. I've been playing Paladin in WoW since the Battle for Azeroth expansion somewhat competently and decided to try Paladin in Final Fantasy XIV. What drew me in were the boss battle videos of Final Fantasy XIV encounters that looked so cool to watch. They reminded me of the epicness of boss battles in old RPG games. I love playing Paladin in WoW, so I thought, why not play Paladin again in another MMO? They look so cool. Before I started this game, I knew I had to put an honest effort into getting decent in Final Fantasy XIV. I didn't want to just dip my toes into it, I wanted to drown myself in it before I gave it an honest opinion. And boy did I drown. But looking at my logs at the end of the Asphodelos tier, I don't think I did that bad, right? Now let's talk about my first impressions of Final Fantasy XIV Savage rating in Asphodelos. Like with every other MMO in the market, learning a proper skill rotation is an imperative first step. Nothing is worse than progging a raid boss with no clue of how your rotation works. Not knowing your rotation during prog is a detriment of how quickly you can progress a boss, especially if you're new to an encounter. Rotation should feel second nature during prog, so your brain power is only focused on mechanics. So I sat in front of a dummy, learning the nuances of the Paladin rotation. Straight off the bat, I felt that the rotation was a bit slow compared to WoW. I first thought to myself, wow, this is incredibly easy. Final Fantasy's 2.5 second timer means there's more room to make errors in a raid situation, right? So I then queued up for a normal raid to see how my rotation looked in a real scenario. One thing I didn't notice during the dummy training session was how much I was clipping my GCDs. To summarize what clipping is, it's a phenomenon in Final Fantasy XIV where an ability on the GCD timer is pushed back because you cast an off GCD ability too close to the GCD coming back up. I didn't realize just how egregious my clipping was until I noticed my abilities not going off in the proper time. I recorded just how much I was clipping, and on average, I was clipping every other GCD on a boss encounter. That's so bad. Now let's do some really rough math. Let's say a boss encounter is 6 minutes long. If a GCD timer is about 2.5 seconds, and you maintain 100% GCD uptime, that's about 144 GCDs cast in one encounter. For the sake of simplicity as well, let's say clipping causes you to lose a third of one GCD, and if you're a noob like me, you clip every other one. Now if you clip that often, you're losing an overall of 24 casts in one encounter. When you extrapolate that with your entire party, that's a whole lot of DPS loss. Clipping so much inadvertently caused me to fail a basic tank function a few times during prog. Taunt swaps are so common in MMOs that if you can't do it simply as a tank, you probably shouldn't tank at all. During the initial times I was in a raid setting, I failed at this. I was casting so many abilities in between each GCD that I'd literally forget to press taunt. I was just lacking. I also began to realize that I wasn't using my utility at its max potential. Just like in WoW, I analyzed every Paladin log I could find to see how the pros would do it. They efficiently weaved Paladin utilities in their rotation like an art form, so meticulously handcrafted like the Mona Lisa. I knew I had a lot of work to do, so I kept practicing. After getting a better grip of my rotation, I knew I still had to get used to the mechanic playstyle of Final Fantasy XIV. But even before that, I needed to study up the jargon Final Fantasy players were using in Party Finder, which by the way is what I use for the entirety of my prog. It's LFG for the WoW players out there. I had to look up what a Junebob is, what even is a limit cut, or even Elmo. I mean, what the heck is a Junebob? The only limit I know is complexity, and Elmo from Sesame Street? These are just a few things that I knew I had to get used to fit in with the crowd. So study I did, and learn I do. After equipping myself with Final Fantasy jargon, there was the mechanics. And oh boy does this game literally revolve around snapshots. Buffs, debuffs, AoE indicators, and boss animations. All of these snapshot mechanics had me second guessing most of the time. I'd either stay in the safe zone too long or move into a safe spot too late before I got used to the snapshots in this game. It really made me question my sanity initially. Furthermore, I was surprised at just how much tank tether mechanics there were. There was literally a tank tether mechanic on every single boss fight, and this didn't really exist in WoW. In theory, it's simple. All you have to do is grab a line tether that goes into a random party member and quickly move away from the party. It sounds so simple, but combining this into your rotation, positioning, and being aware of snapshots made this initially quite difficult. I soon started doubting my ability to tank competently at this point. After clearing the first 2 bosses in Asphodelos, I started my prog on the third. The third boss in Asphodelos. What an encounter. The first 2 bosses didn't seem too bad, but boy was this a different beast. You'll hear WoW players complaining about not being able to see mechanics, and blame Blizzard for using similar color schemes for their indicators, but the third boss in Asphodelos is something else. The amount of red, orange, and yellow, and even purple that's in this fight is ridiculous, especially during the Fire Glide sweep mechanic during intermission. Seeing that for the first time is the strongest visual diarrhea I've ever seen in my life. Even if you've studied the fight before and looked at other VODs to review, encountering this for the first time is so jarring that there's no shot you ever get this right on the first try. I literally had to take a break from Final Fantasy XIV after progging this boss in Party Finder. I was so burnt out.
Job finished? I don't think so.
The work was never done, and I wasn't going to leave work unfinished. After finishing up Mythic Sepulchre and WoW, I knew I had to come back, but this time with a vengeance. I brushed up on my rotation and sat in front of a dummy again until I didn't make a mistake for 30 minutes straight. I relearned each boss I killed to get into the swing of things again. Grey Parses, be gone. I prepped myself for the 4th circle. Pinax beams, I didn't care. I stayed in Party Finder for 5 hours a day until I cleared it. 2nd phase memes, no problem. 5 hours a day every day until cleared. Nothing was going to get in my way of accomplishing this. I wanted it so bad, and each mistake fueled my ambition even more. I was going to clear this raid if it's the last thing I do. And you know what? I did. It felt good coming back to where I left off. That was another aspect of the game I loved. Leave when you need to and just come right back without feeling too far behind. The journey was definitely a roller coaster, and there were more dips than rises, as obviously expected from your first time. Regardless of that though, the rush that I felt after clearing each boss rejuvenated my energy towards MMOs again. I'm excited to see future Final Fantasy raids as I hone my skills even further and continue with the same energy in WoW as well.
Well met!
A big thank you to everyone for watching, and until next time, peace.